Hi, welcome to today's courageous question. Today's question comes from Julie, and Julie shared a little bit about her experience in healing. She's been to therapy, she's tried some different techniques to do the healing. She feels like she's done pretty well, but is finding that she's struggling a little bit. So her question is, how do I know if my ongoing problems are related to abuse or something else? This is a really great question because it's easy to look at different things in our lives and not really know if there's a connection somewhere else. And I've worked with a lot of people who have been in therapy previously, sometimes for years potentially, or done different kinds of techniques, but still find that they struggle. And the thing about sexual abuse, or any kind of childhood abuse really, is that even though what you're struggling with in the particular moment may seem totally unrelated, there may even be some really helpful things that you can do that are not related to sexual abuse treatment that can help you through that thing. So, for example, if you're not feeling particularly motivated to get something done, like if you're really procrastinating a lot, you're finding maybe at work you're not getting things done on time or something like that, you can go to somebody, like even a coach or something like that, who can hold you accountable, can really get you on a path and say, okay, you need to do these things, and these things, and then you'll get through that block and be able to keep getting your stuff done on time. Well, the thing about unhealed wounds, which is the bigger thing that I talk about, the thing about having a history of something that is really impactful or having wounds that you haven't yet healed fully is that even though that lack of motivation and some very simple kinds of techniques or tools can help you kind of break through that and start doing better at getting things done, you find that very often it's short-lived. And the reason for that is because whatever our core beliefs are, we can fool them. We can kind of move away from them and kind of go around them for short periods of time. But those core beliefs are always going to find their way back. And so in regards to how do I know if this is abuse related or if it's something else, the truth is that no matter what is going on in your current life, whatever the struggle in your current life, having that frame of reference that you are a survivor of abuse or something traumatic, something really difficult that you experienced, being able to recognize that frame of reference and the impact that that has on us is important no matter what kind of therapy you're getting or what kind of work you're going to do, like if you're working with a coach or something like that. So yes, you may not necessarily need to go back and revisit the abuse or anything like that, especially, well, particularly if you've already done a lot of really solid unraveling of those core beliefs, understanding where they came from, and the real deep healing work. Then you don't necessarily have to go back and talk about abuse specifically, but being able to really recognize that maybe some of those beliefs are creeping back in, helping you recognize that, okay, maybe I need to take a look at how vulnerable I'm feeling, how stressed I've been feeling. Is there maybe something that has brought some stuff up for me, even if you've done a lot of really great healing work? Because that's the thing about abuse and healing from childhood trauma. It's not just about talking about it. It's not just about treating a diagnosis. It's not just about learning tools and techniques to treat the symptoms, to feel better. So whether you've done a lot of healing work in the past or not, seeing somebody who really does understand the context of you as a survivor of childhood abuse is really, I believe, important. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have, if you're going for something like not feeling motivated or things that aren't necessarily having a really significant impact on you, then it's not absolutely necessary that that person have a solid, experienced background of treating trauma survivors. But just for you and maybe that person to also have in mind, I do think is really important. And really, part of the reason that so many people, including a lot of the clients that I've worked with, who find that they continue to struggle in different ways, it is because maybe they haven't done the deep healing work, the soul healing work that is really necessary. Because healing from childhood trauma isn't, like I said, about talking about it. It's not about going through a particular program for a period of time or learning specific techniques or tools or skills. Healing from childhood sexual abuse is much like deprogramming from being in a cult. It really is quite similar in so many aspects. And it takes somebody who is really trained and experienced in all the dynamics of what it means to be somebody who's grown up in a cult or to be brainwashed. Those are very real experiences. It's not just, people throw things around a lot about brainwashing and stuff like that. But the reality is that it is something that happens. And when you've been sexually abused as a child, even if nobody specifically said any kinds of things that were really damaging, because we repeat the same things to ourselves over and over and over again, we ourselves can brainwash our own minds. So healing from sexual abuse, use these tools, use these different things that you're learning, read the books and understand, because that is an important part of healing. But giving yourself the time and the space to release those things that have been so ingrained in your mind and body. It takes time for that. It takes time to rebuild and connect to what is true. And that's what the healing process is. That's why it takes as long as it does. And I know that it's frustrating and I know that it's disheartening so often when you've done so much, you've invested so much of yourself and your time and your money in this process, and you just want to get away from abuse and deal with this lack of motivation over here. But the reality is that is a part of our history. So especially if you find that your current struggle has an aspect that is similar to what you struggled with before you did the healing or before you did this or that thing to heal, then I think it is helpful to consider seeing somebody that has a real solid understanding of what it means to be a survivor of abuse. One of the things that has been going around, this has been several years really, especially in the mental health community, but now it's becoming broader and broader, which I think is really helpful, is the idea of people being trained in the idea of trauma-informed care. And that is something that actually I used to train people on as well, is recognizing that no matter what realm you work on, if you're trying to help people, having an awareness of the impact of trauma on people in general, so that when you're working with somebody, you can kind of identify if that might be a piece of it. However, being trauma informed does not equal being trauma qualified as a therapist. And I say this to you because, not to discredit anybody, because so much of our own healing happens just in a relationship that we have with somebody. It could be our partner or a great friend or a mentor that you know personally. There's a lot of healing that happens in that. So I'm not trying to discount a role that somebody else may have in your life. But when it comes to really healing those soul deep wounds, it is important. And I know I repeat this over and over and over again, but it's important to work with somebody who really understands everything that it means to be a survivor of abuse. And the reason that I say it over and over again ultimately is because I've known so many of you who have held on to this idea after doing so much work towards healing. And then you find that you struggle again or more. Doesn't seem like it's helped. That you interpret that as it meaning something about you. That maybe you're too damaged. Maybe you've waited too long. Maybe you're beyond hope. Maybe healing is possible for other people, but clearly not for me. And that just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I know there's so many of you out there who have said something like that to yourself. Even for people who are not trauma survivors, people who've never experienced anything particularly traumatic, but they read this self-help book, this self-development, or they go to this seminar, this weekend-long thing that's supposed to dramatically change your life. And maybe it does for a little while. But then you find that the struggle is still there, that the self-doubt is still there. You might even struggle a little bit more because you are thinking that there's something wrong with you. This was such an amazing experience. Why am I still struggling? And then you think all these other people were magically changed. There must be something different about them. There's not. Because those people, while they may not share it, or it may not be happening right then, they end up struggling too. Because ultimately, the core belief of who we are isn't something that is easily changed. That core belief within you fights to stay exactly as it is because it feels safe, because it's what is known. So when you try to change the belief about who you are, it's not as simple as changing your thoughts. Ultimately, I suppose it actually is that simple in theory. But we can't just kind of think our way through it. There's processing that has to happen. And it's in that processing and that time and space that we have to process over and over and over again that working with somebody that has a grounded, extensive experience in doing this work becomes so beneficial. So I know that I kind of went off a little bit there, which I sometimes tend to do, but it is still all very connected. If you're still struggling, it is important to recognize, I am a survivor. Is it possible that maybe some of that stuff is coming up again? And if you're just needing some support to get through something very specific in your life right now, then try something else. Just don't beat up on yourself if it doesn't work in the way that you hoped, or if maybe it works for a short period of time, but then you find yourself struggling again. Know that there's a reason for it. And that reason has nothing to do with your capacity to heal. Nothing at all. So thank you for listening. I hope, Julie, that this question was or that my answer to your question was helpful. If any of you have anything that you would like to ask me, you can send to Q&A@courageousjourneys.com. It should be right down there. I would love to hear from you. I would love to know what you would like me to talk about in this Q&A series. I love getting the questions from you guys. And if one of you has a question, there's hundreds more who have asked themselves the same thing, who have wondered, why is this the case? What is it that I need? Why am I struggling? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? Why do other people do the things that they do? There's so many questions out there. And when one person sends a question in and I can answer that, it's helping many people. So if you've got a question, please consider sending it in to Q&A@courageousjourneys.com. And also, if you're not aware, I am beginning my new online group course. Beginning May 5th will be our first live call. It's a 6-week course of Journey to Understanding, about all the things that we need to understand and learn about ourselves in this process of healing. And then each week we come together for a live group call with me to help process some of the stuff that's coming up. So if you are interested in learning more about that, I will share the link in the description. So please check it out. No matter where you are in the world, you can join us. The live calls are on, one week it's going to be on a Thursday afternoon Pacific time. The following week it will be on a Saturday morning Pacific time. And I did that so that people in different parts of the world would be more likely to be able to join us. So if you're interested, check out the details. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message. I'm happy to answer. I would love to see you inside that group. I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. I would love to have you a permanent part of our tribe, and then you'll get the emails from YouTube directly when I've posted a new video. So thank you for joining me. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.